So it seems we will have to wait at least another 18 months before rolling blackouts ease. This was the message that Eskom's CEO Aviwe Mtila had for Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Now, you might remember last year Scopa made recommendations on interventions at the ailing power utility following various site visits. Today, the committee wanted an update on progress. Mtila told the oversight body that higher stages of blackouts could have been averted if Eskom had had the money to pay for diesel. eNCA's Aviwe Mtila has been following the meeting. He joins us for an update now. Aviwe, thank you so much for joining us. I ask this with trepidation because we've seen so many people, from the president to ministers to pundits, saying when they think load shedding will end. And load shedding just continues no matter what anyone says. Aviwe Mtila telling Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, we're in for another 18 months. Is it 18 months at least? Or is he saying that within 18 months, load shedding will be finished?
Well, Sally, you're sounding like the Standing Committee on Public Accounts today, asking that very same question at least a half a dozen times to Aviwe Mtila and the Eskom board in its entirety. They didn't get a solid answer, Sally, as to when we'll see the end of load shedding, but the promise is by the 31st of March, 2025 is when we'll see a significant reduction to the current load shedding space that we're hearing. In fact, we were told that the energy availability factor then will be at about 70%. But in the interim, we're told, Sally, that in the next month or so, they're planning to put at least 1,200 megawatts into the grid. That will then increase the energy availability factor to at least 60% by the end of March 2023. The following year, that's March 2024, end of that financial year, we're expecting that energy availability factor to sit around 65%, and then that promise is 70%. But you know, the standard norm, Sally, around the world is at least 75%, where the standard norm of the energy availability factor sits at. So we're still far away from seeing the end of load shedding, but we're told that at least by March 2025, it will be significantly reduced. In fact, that's one of the sore points that Aviwe Mtila had to answer. Let's take a listen to that.
So when will load shedding end? I will try and answer your question, Honourable Chair, by referring to the risk of load shedding. The 9,200 megawatts coming online, and we anticipate that that trend will continue and will continue to grow. There's huge activity going on in terms of investing in new generation capacity that will be brought online in relatively short order. So the risk of load shedding will substantially diminish in the next 18 months. Will it be eliminated? I think that will be a brave person to make that categorical statement. But having regard to our own turnaround plans and the fact that we are seeing substantial new capacity being added, we should see the risk diminish.
I mean, that is perhaps the most realistic answer I've heard, that 18 months, and during that time things might ease, but certainly no commitment to an absolute halt. There is no guarantee, is what I'm hearing, but plans are afoot. The other issue that Eskom has spoken a lot about is corruption within the utility. That was addressed again today. Aviwe Mtila saying some fairly startling things, alleging that there was a lack of commitment, really, on the part of the police to investigate this.
It's disappointment, Sally, on the law enforcement agency and the lack of going after the corruption that we have known of in Eskom for years now. The malfeasance, in fact. SIU was part of that briefing today, gave the final words on terms of what they're doing and the cases that they are chasing after. It was in the thousands, Sally, issues that the SIU have alerted themselves. But the CEO of Eskom, the man that steers the ship of Eskom, basically said that he's taken the unprecedented step of actually gathering intelligence himself and seemingly pursuing all those criminal elements that are involved in Eskom himself. You'd know just about a month ago, Sally, in the beginning of December, where we saw that deployment of the SANDF into 4 power stations in Mpumalanga because, of course, those allegations of criminality that was rampant, especially when it comes to coal. In fact, one of those issues that the CEO, Andre de Ruyter, once again touched on what he's doing personally as the CEO of Eskom when it comes to tackling the crime inside.
Now, the corruption in coal also continues till today. If I may just give an indication of how severe that is, we have implemented significant control measures to improve monitoring of coal. We have installed what are known as load cells on the trucks to monitor whenever weight is taken off a truck or added to a truck to prevent tampering with the load and the offloading of coal. Now, Honourable Chair, while we were implementing this particular contract, a senior manager of the firm doing this work was approached by an individual with an offer for a bribe to give this particular individual access to the system. So that's how organised this corruption is. It is entrenched. And we have, as Eskom, advocated for a very long time for increased law enforcement, for increased intelligence gathering, and for increased assistance. Honourable Chair, I found myself in the regrettable position that I had to approach private donors to run an intelligence operation to gather intelligence on this corruption because of a lack of support from our law enforcement agencies.
That is really quite an indictment. It is very troubling. The other issue that was very troubling was when Andre de Ruyter laid out the diesel issue, saying that if they'd had enough money for all the diesel they wanted, they could have averted the deeper levels of load shedding that we've been going through. But also explaining that that by the end of this financial year, which of course is at the end of March, they will have spent almost 3 times their budget that they had originally allocated for diesel.
Well, it seems like the quick fix to our load shedding woes, Sally, the burning of diesel. We do know the budget that they got for this financial year was 8 billion rand. As it stands this January, they've spent 10 billion rand more than that. It's at a staggering 18 billion rand that the diesel that has been burnt this year. We do know by the end of the financial year that could be sitting, Sally, at around 22 billion rand. But we do know while they've gone cap in hand to the finance ministry, for example, for more money, they've been shunned down. They've been told no more money. But the Eskom CEO seems to suggest that that could be the only solution to give us some sort of reprieve in the interim, and we can have the economy, of course, growing with the lights going, not having these high stages of load shedding. But it seems like we're caught between a rock and a hard place, as the ministry itself does not want to give that money, as already they've gone above and beyond, giving them 10 billion rand as it stands more. In fact, one of those issues that the CEO once again touched on, Andre de Ruyter, on just what needs to happen now, as of course we do know that that burning of diesel is coming at a costly rate.
For this financial year, we started the financial year with a budget of 8 billion rand. We're assuming a load factor of about 6% during the course of the year, obviously on the assumption that EAF would perform at the targeted level that was set for the year. We currently have spent to date 18 billion on diesel, so 10 billion above the budget, at an average of about 1.8 billion per month if I just average it out evenly. So maybe getting back to the question, if we look at this financial year, most probably, yes, having the money, and as the chair said, funding model being sorted, potentially could add about another 2 billion for February and another 2 billion for March, ending probably around 22 billion for the year compared to the regional budget.
Sure. Yeah, that is a lot of money. I want to ask you a question about the atmosphere in the room, what that was like, and also looking at those earlier clips from Andre de Ruyter. I mean, this is a man who's leaving the organization at the end of March, who opened an attempted murder case in December after someone attempted to poison him with cyanide. I mean, this is just truly, this is spy-level stuff. I mean, it's just astonishing. How did Andre de Ruyter come across in terms of his demeanour? And were these issues, his departure, the attempted murder, were these raised during today's discussions?
Well, his departure was raised where he did pay it out, in fact, that it had no bearing on what needed to be done at Eskom. In fact, Sally, you'd swear that he's going nowhere in terms of how he was delivering the plans of Eskom, even speaking on the 18 months that it would take, in fact, to at least reduce the load shedding burden. So it seemed like a person that would still stay at Eskom, although we do know, of course, his tenure has come to an end. But of course, he was often, time and again, shielded by the chairperson of Eskom and the board at the current moment, and suggesting that let's just see what happens, suggesting that they've been treated unfairly as they are now trying to come up with plans that would at least show, for example, ensure that the energy availability factor is changed for the better by 2023 at the end of March, where we do know at least it'll be sitting at around 70%. Those are the promises. So they're saying that give this new Eskom board a chance and let's see then what happens in these promised next 18 months or so, Sally.
All right, so they're hoping to get that energy availability factor up to, what, close to 70% in the next 18 months. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much, Aviwe Mtila, coming to us from Cape Town this afternoon.